I just got done watching the brand new episode of The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, Chapter 18, and let's talk about this thing in full spoiler detail because this is the way. I'm a massive fan of when it comes down to The Mandalorian, and last week's opening episode, while not the best opening episode out of the last 3 seasons, it was still a good episode that really much established exactly the direction that we are going on inside this show. It was actually one of the more surprising things I thought from watching the show and seeing how they very much have kind of pieced together. The last 2 seasons, it seems like they had a story to tell in the background, but overall each episode was very much more serialized. And this episode kind of continues because honestly now at this point, I don't really know what the rest of the season is going to be about, but all I know is that I'm very interested in that there's this hook at the end of every episode typically that waits for you next week, and this one has that giant hook, that hook, lines, and sinkers you in to be very excited for the rest of this season. And overall now I'm very much excited to see because I think the end of this episode not just establishes Din more back into the Creed, but it also kind of brings Bo-Katan back to the light of how important it is to bring back Mandalore. At least that's the way I took it when she saw that giant creature inside the Mines of Mandalore within the living waters. But I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Kicking off this episode, it's very much them visiting our favorite droid person, Peli. And she ends up selling him, well, this cool R2-D2 droid, R9 I think is his name, and I like that. I like that he ended up getting that. I was kind of hoping he would be able to fix IG. Maybe that's coming down the road. It's kind of Chekhov's gun style. You don't put that in there if you're not going to bring him back. But with that said, she installs it, puts it back in his ship, and they're on their way. And heading there, we already get to Mandalore. And it kicks off very nicely as you're kind of descending on. You see Grogu kind of scared of this planet. And Din's, who has never been to Mandalore, he grew up on an off-world moon, or just another area in the whole entire atmosphere. And, he's pointing out this stuff on the galaxy map to Grogu. And for me, one of the things that I really love about this is, of course, I have a reaction coming up in the next couple of hours that you can definitely check out where I react to the episode. And one of the things that I love how they really much paralleled this episode is Din visiting Mandalore for the very first time. He's never been there. And he's kind of awe-struck. No matter what, he sees the beauty in this apocalyptic, destroyed planet. That has so much history to it, specifically of his people and who had raised him. And when we see Bo-Katan entering the atmosphere, you really much get a different feel for it because she feels brokenhearted of what once was one of the most beautiful places in the entire galaxy. So I love seeing the two parallels because we have one hopeful person and very optimistic, and then we have one who just could not care less about being there. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I love seeing him land. I love seeing him have to go save the droid and kick some ass against those cave people, which was just fun. And this kind of could be the episode where, Din is kind of the Mandalorian in distress. Because him and Grogu descend into the mind, and this robotic creature that kind of reminds me of, half General Grievous's, cracked out uncle living in a cave, ends up capturing him, and he has to end up, telling Grogu, go get Bo-Katan. And he ends up, Grogu, in the cutest style ever, ends up flying his little pod, gets back to the ship, gets all the way to Bo-Katan, and as he gets to Bo-Katan, Bo-Katan realizes something is wrong. If the child is here, she gets the details, she heads back to Mandalore, gets down in there, takes down some more cave people, badass style, and then goes up against General Grievous's cracked out uncle. Now, of course, yes, this is not General Grievous's cracked out uncle. He just looks like a General Grievous's cracked out uncle. And that entire action set piece, I was so in love with. But I got more in love with it when she grabbed the Darksaber. And she just started going ham with it. She is the rightful owner to that, in my opinion. I mean, technically the Vizsla family is, but I really love how she was able to use it. And, when you see, again, that parallel of Mando using it and still not being able to wield it well, and Bo-Katan using it flawlessly, and two different ideologies, two different parallels, and two different things visiting Mandalore. And I love how both of their journeys really in favor here. She ends up killing the droid, saving Din, feeding him Pog soup, which again ties back to the Mandalorian children and Mandalorian childhood. And it's cool because Din is starting to learn something a little bit different on a different side of this. And she ends up going, I'll take you there. You'll probably, without me, you'll never be able to get there. And she's very sarcastic in bringing him down into the mine. And I love how they're able to establish this and show each and every one of these pieces, but it's also very interesting to see how it all works. Now, once they get there, he starts taking off the Darksaber, his gun, everything he needs to, goes into the water, and just falls right in. Again, Mando is just in distress. Din is like the Princess Peach of this episode. And, Bo-Katan dives in, finds him, and as she's going up, she sees the creature, which looks like the creature from this sigil. And as she was reading, before going into there, it's like she expected nothing to be in there. So it's very fascinating to see now how maybe that could bring hope to her. And as she jumps out, it cuts to black. What a perfect way to end this episode and make me crave next week's episode. This episode had great action, great story written throughout it, and as well as just some great little Grogu moments where he's actually using the Force to save some people. I love this thing, and congrats to Rachel Morrison who directed this. She did a fantastic job. I think overall she's mostly just been a cinematographer on a lot of projects, and she's a great cinematographer. So to see how she shot this episode, it was beautiful. And I really love this episode. I thought this was another great installment of The Mandalorian. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are on this episode. If you're new here, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because this is the way the Force is with you. I'm one of those crazy people that stays up till midnight to watch this goddamn show right when it comes out, and I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts. So again, thank you so much again for watching, and of course, until next time, stay classy.